Now, the duo we're going to talk about in this episode sold 16 million records between 1971 and 76. And they became a duo kind of by accident. One of the guys had been involved in two big groups. He was in Buffalo Springfield and he was in Poco. The other guy was pretty much unknown, but together they created magic. So are you ready to go to that house at Pooh Corner? Yep, we're talking about Loggins and Messina. So let's drop the needle. Jim Messina was a recording engineer, and he worked with the band the Buffalo Springfield. But the Buffalo Springfield had a number of issues, including the fact that their bass player, Bruce Palmer, got deported back to Canada. So Messina set in to play bass with them. And on their last album, Last Time Around, it was basically Jim Messina and Richie Furay who actually put that whole album together. And I talk about Buffalo Springfield in an earlier episode. After the Buffalo Springfield broke up, Messina and Furay decided they would form a new band called Poco, a country rock band. And so together they did 2 albums and a live album. By that point, though, Jim Messina decided touring was too much for him, and he left the band to go back to producing. Jim Messina met an up-and-coming singer-songwriter who had just sold some songs to the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band who had recorded them, and he liked what he heard. The singer-songwriter was called Kenny Loggins, and so Jim Messina invited Kenny over to his house one day where he had set up recording equipment in the living room. And they recorded some songs together, and Jim liked what they were doing. In fact, he got much more involved with Kenny and started co-writing and arranging some of the songs that eventually came out on their first album. And their first album is called Kenny Loggins with Jim Messina sitting in. Now, the reason it's called that is they weren't actually officially a duo at that time. So you got Kenny Loggins with Jimmy Messina just kind of sitting in. The album found success on college radios around the country. And so the duo put together a band and toured to support it. On the record, I like these songs. Danny's Song, Bahevala, The House at Pooh Corner, and Listen to a Country Song. With the mild success of the first album and the success they were getting on touring, they decided to actually make themselves a duo and officially become Loggins and Messina and release their second album. Released in 1972, it contains the hit Your Mama Don't Dance. And then I also like I'm Thinking of You, Whiskey, Lady of My Heart, and Angry Eyes. This album caught some traction, and they continued to tour. And then in 1973, they released their next album, which is called Full Sail. I like the lead-off song, Lahaina. And of course I would. Well, it's a great song, but it's about the town of Lahaina in Maui, Hawaii, which is one of my favorite places. I also like a love song, Watching the River Run, and Sailing the Wind. Then in 1974, they decide, well, you know what? It's time for a live album. And let's make it a double live album. And so they do. Besides containing their hits and songs that they were playing on the road, they stretch out their big hit, Bahevala, to 21 minutes on the entire side 3 of the 4 sides of this album. They continue to tour. Remember, that's kind of ironic because Jim Messina left Poco because he didn't like touring. But they continued to tour, and so the same year, they released their next album, which is called Motherlode. Lots of good songs here. I like Growing, Be Free, Time to Space, Move On, and Fever Dream. Now, for their next album, Loggins and Messina decide to do an album of cover songs, and they do some great ones. The album is called So Fine. It's fun to hear them sing Oh Lonesome Me, Wake Up Little Susie, Hello Mary Lou, Splish Splash, and I Like It Like That. In 1976, they released their 6th and final album called Native Sons. Good songs include Sweet Marie, When I Was a Child, My Lady, My Love, and Native Son. They continued to tour to support it, but both of them knew that the magic was no longer there. So after a concert in Hawaii, they shook hands and broke up the band. Both of them continued on with solo careers. Jim Messina has a studio where he produces albums for himself and other artists. He's recorded a bunch of albums, and he continues to tour. Kenny Loggins recorded a number of solo records and a number of soundtracks. And of course, then there's that one everybody remembers, Danger Zone from Top Gun. And that song kind of helped make Top Gun as big a hit movie as it was. Now, as usual, I've created a Spotify playlist so you can listen to some of the great music that Loggins and Messina created. So an accidental partnership where Jim Messina just decides to sit in with Kenny Loggins started a very lucrative career of the two of them together, which they both spun off to successful careers. A lot of good music came out of Loggins and Messina. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And until next time, keep it rocking. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. And you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.